Hi, and welcome back to Bill's Retro Stuff. Today, I'm kind of showing you a project I've been working on. And I guess I could say that it's been a big project that I'm working on. What you see here is a Kenwood 5010 receiver built from 79 to around 80. 78, 79, 80 in those 3 years. I bought this receiver a while back, and it's kind of the ones I kind of like because the gauges up in here, you've got your watt meters and your 2 watt meters and your tuning meters. It's kind of the one I kind of like to have. It's really not the one I really like to have, but it's close enough, and it was reasonable, and it was in pretty decent shape, so I thought. Let's go through some of the stuff that I will tell you that I found with this unit that was bad. There was actually quite a few things. I've already disassembled it, of course, so we should so that we can put it back together once I get all the parts in. I'm still waiting on some of the parts. Things I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. A little thing about these amplifiers that I have found that I did not really know about was the way they set up the on and off switch. They're in line with the speaker switch, which to me is not a big deal. A lot of people I've read don't like that because, you know, voltage and stuff. But if you've ever had any old televisions from the 70s, 60s, a lot of those sets had the volume control, you know, where you pulled the knob on, turn the television on, and you turn the volume up, you know, with one knob. So you had the on-off switch and your volume. So to me, it's not a big deal. This amplifier, when you would turn it on, would get a hum or a hiss out of the transformer. I thought it was a bad transformer. I was looking for one. Good luck on finding this transformer. No luck finding it. Luckily, that's not the problem. I talked to a buddy of mine who used to repair stereos and TVs. He still does a little bit of it, but he kind of retired to take care of other business. But anyway, he said no. He said I checked the switch. So if you look, this is the on-off switch with the speakers, you know, so you can go to like phono, or not phono, it goes to like earphones, speaker A, speaker B, speaker A and B. And this switch here has some problems. I don't, a buddy of mine and I'm kind of thinking the way it is, after taking it apart, that it's just rated too low for its current draw for the transformer or for the unit itself. So what I had done was I've taken, and it's really easy, just pull these clips back and pull well, you've got to undo the front, bend them straight, and you pull this rod apart to stay stationary. But anyway, I took it apart and cleaned the contacts, but they were pitted pretty good, so that means I would say the contacts have broken down, and I'm thinking they might have been silver at one time, silver coated maybe, or whatever they used. I've got a 3D printer and haven't quite tinkered with it, but I might later on come up with another package similar to this here. Still use this, take the switch out, and maybe attach, you know, build a thing so that it attaches to something here, so it turns an actual switch on. So it takes a, you know, so maybe simplify it or make it look a little different, or even use just do something different with it. We may look at that here in the future. Another thing my buddy was telling me about, he said these, if you look inside here, see that white thing, that's plastic. He said that usually breaks down and breaks over time. Now, a little secret, I think I found something that might work. Either that or I'll design my own, laser etch it and stuff like that, and I'll design my own PCB with a different switch, or come up with a find out how this is all switched, which I may end up doing, and then put a regular rotary switch that with solid connections, you know. So instead of this here actually gets soldered into the board down here in this corner, which means you got to take the boards loose. That's why everything's torn apart. But anyway, so the switch, I was getting a hiss out of that, so he recommended just jumpering out when it was in there, just running jumpers on there, so then plugging off and on, and it didn't make noise, so that tells me it was in the switch, which after taking it apart is the corrosion that was on the contacts in here were and the pittiness for it was sparking all those times. So anyway, that's the adventure, and you can't find this stuff. I mean, that's a shame. You just can't find it. You might get lucky every now and then, come up across the switch for another unit, which I'm pretty sure they're probably about the same. They all look like they all slide into the same housing, but very hard to find. So you need to take very gentle care out. Right here, it looked like when they bent the tab over, they made that real weak, and when I went to straighten it up, it broke off. But that's not here and there. I can fix all that. But this was the number one. This is one of the problems right here. And like I said, the transformer would hiss and the lights would flicker. Well, the light. Now, there's 3 bulbs in here. That's the other thing that went bad. That's bad in here. This was one of them. The power switch was one of them. You know, this is all kind of a fragile unit. So if you ever decide to fix these, and they use these in a lot of the KR, like the 470 series, and I think the 560. This, you know, this whole assembly. If not the switch anyway, this power switch. Actually, I even use this, and I was looking at some of this. I think like the Pioneer 450 and the 550 maybe. Pioneer used these as well. So if you get into this, these are going to be tricky to find. Lucky I have a friend of mine that has one, or has some, so he's going to give me actually a heavier duty set, so that's going to be good in here. So just be forewarned, I guess, that you're going to have a hard time finding that. And if you break this, if that plastic in there comes off, or that plastic, that white plastic inside there, if it breaks down, you're going to have a hard time finding that switch. Of course, the other thing that was in here, which is not uncommon for this, was the light bulbs. And this takes an 8-volt light bulb, which a lot of them did. And basically, it looks like a one you put in the old cars. And they were originally they were crimped onto the wires. Now I've ordered these bulbs, and they still make these bulbs, but they also now make an LED replacement. So I am going to try the LED replacement, even though I ordered both. And then basically what you can do is you can still solder it on here. I'll just interweave, you know, onto the connector, and I'll solder it onto the new bulb, and heat shrink tube it to make sure that it's good. But the reason I thought about, and I understand why people are going to LEDs. I know that's the newest thing, but if you look on this housing here, this is where the light bulbs go in, and of course it illuminates this whole plastic, which illuminates your gauges and stuff. See how discolored that one there is? It's gotten heat cracked. It's, it gets very hot, and on the top of the thing you can see where the scorch marks from where the bulbs were. So it'd be nice for safety anyway to replace with LEDs, light bulb with LEDs. Another neat little thing too, I found out that this right here, even though it's for Kenwood, they use this same thing here in a Pioneer. Somewhere along the line, they look identical. It's got a hole in it. It's got the. I was looking around to see about other stuff I can do, but it has the oblong hole here and the regular hole here. So, and I found it for a Pioneer. It's identical, exactly looks the same. So that's kind of unique. So the light bulbs are a thing, and I'm still waiting on parts. The other thing, of course, is capacitors. And I say capacitors because I'll replace these capacitors. These are the new ones. I've got another one I took out because I had to slide this board forward. These capacitors here are very weird. They're a 50 volt, 7500 microfarad. Good luck. People say you can't substitute microfarad. I disagree with that. Only because these have a tolerance, supposed to have a tolerance of 20%. And so therefore it can go from 750 and it can go down all the way down to, you know, 1400 lower than that. So what makes that about 6100, 6200 microfarads. So when they tell you you can't replace the microfarads, they are somewhat correct in that, but I have found over time, like this one here is a 8200 microfarad, and you can buy those. Get it out, get the one so I can show you here. This is an 8200 microfarad at 50 volts. Higher temperature rating is 100C. I like to put 105C capacitors. Not that there's a whole lot of heat in here. It might be a little bit from the transformer, but it's a little shorter. Don't make any difference. A lot of that stuff's shorter. The only thing you want to make sure is the spacing here is correct, and a lot of them with this 1-inch diameter are spot on. But you're not going to find these 7500s. I've looked. This one here is reading around 6,000. Actually, these originals were both reading, so they were kind of too low for my taste. Also, I found that I had another receiver at 720. I have the capacitors were 6800s. And one blue, but anyway, they I don't know, I've kind of lost my train of thought on that, but that's all right. Anyway, so oh, they were 68, but they were reading like 72, and so when I say, you know, they are somewhat right, yes, because when you up the microfarads, you change some other stuff. But since I can't find these, and these are only about, you know, 700 microfarads higher, and these here were like 1400 microfarads lower, I figure I can get away with an 82, and I still say you can get away with an 82. I've been lucky so far that these both here, believe it or not, are running 7500 microfarad. So I've been happy. I always size the capacitors for its diameters and the heights as much as I can. I couldn't find that height of that one, so these are just fine. I've got some shorter ones. A lot of people use music rated capacitors, which are these right here, and I do have some of these, but they're even shorter yet. I wanted something a little taller in here, and with the higher temperature, I think the stuff for the ones I bought for these are I don't even know what I'm trying to tell you. The microfarads were a lot not the microfarads, but the jeez, lost my train of thought again. But anyway, so yes, I say you can get away with it as long as you keep it within. I try to keep it within 10%. But anyway, I got lucky enough. These here both were tested at 7,500 microfarad, or 747,000, or yeah, 7,495. So I always try to, when I put capacitors in, I always try to size them up so that they're, you know, as far as the microfarads, they're close to what they say on here as possible. Just one of the things I do. You don't have to do it that way, but I do it that way. I went ahead and recapped the power supply section, except for like these over here. Those tested good. This is non-polarized. I didn't have any non-polarized, but it tested good. I mean, right where it needed to be. I don't like messing with the amplifiers a little that much, because the problem is you get into the amplifiers, you know, you take a chance of, you know, off doing some, you know, maybe the capacitor could change the frequency of it, so everything's not lined up properly. But you know, that's just me. Other people don't have any problem doing it, and I might go ahead and replace them and tinker with it. I just don't have the equipment to test it. But anyway, so that was the other problem. I didn't like the capacitors were too low, and I went ahead and recapped the power supply and the audio amplifier. And the third thing that was wrong with this was one of these Darlington packs was bad. Let's talk about the Darlington packs just for a little bit. My buddy was telling me this was a really bad design for these years, and a lot of them use these to cut cost, you know. I don't see how much it costs. I guess it eliminated some other circuitry that was inside the unit that's not required now. A lot of these are coming out of China, and I've done a lot of research on these. This is an STK-0050. It's a 45 watt amplifier. I finally found the original non-used equipment of these out of Canada. A guy had a set of them, so I ordered them, so they're going to take a little time. In the meantime, I'm going to lay this down in here. In the meantime, I'm going to turn this down here. Keep all my amplifier stuff and not in drawers because it's not something I want to do. But in the meantime, I ordered these China brand ones. I don't know if that's going to show up good in the light. Hope it does. See that number right there? The 4325. A lot of people were saying that these amplifiers are very low quality. Or not amplifiers, the Darlington packs. They kind of are amplifiers. Darlington compared to the new one. And testing them, one of these pin, I think 8 and 9 or 8 and 0, or one of those two pins, it's dead open. Actually on both of them. One's open and one is dead shorted. So I'm going to replace both of them. But anyway, you want to stay away from that number 4325. You'll see a lot of them on there. So I ordered another set with a different number up here. Hopefully they'll test good. But also went ahead and ordered a set of these just in case. I want to get keep a couple around anyway, just to make sure that, you know, later on if I can't get hold of them, something blows in here again. These have a bad habit of doing that. You know, I can at least get it back up and running for a while, and then eventually it's just gonna be done. But anyway, so stay away from that 4325 number up there. And I have tested it. If you go and test the pins, I've got written down how you test them, and we'll go through that when I get ready to put it together, so we can kind of get an idea. The diode number on here. This in here runs around, the diodes when I test them are running, except for the ones that are bad, are running around 825. I can't remember what the number's for, but that's, I call it HFE, but it's not what it is. These new ones are running around 525. Now that may be because of how they build them. Maybe the new stuff has a lower number, but yet still does the same function. I'm not going to take a chance because, like I said, I've read a lot about that. So hopefully when I get the new ones here in a few days, same style, has the same writing, maybe a little thicker writing, but it has a different number here. I'll test it, and if it still tests lower than the diodes that were in here that are still good, you know, I mean, if it was down to 725 or something, I wouldn't mind it so much, wouldn't bother me. But when it gets down into, you know, when you're getting down into the, you know, 500s from 800, that's a little too low for me. So I'm not going to use those. Keep them around just in case, maybe. My buddy did not have any of these. These have been a lot of problems. They sit actually down here in the bottom, down in here. There's a big black heat sink right here that they sit on, and then there's a rail that locks all that down. It keeps that in place. Of course, there's some screws that keeps it in place. Not an easy amplifier to work on, but anyway, these here are hard to find that's not made in China, that are a little bit lower quality. These lasted for years, obviously, because I don't know how long it's actually lasted in here, but I would say that they've lasted for a while. They're the originals, not been replaced. Everybody's ever messed with it. The solders on it, solder joints were good. So anyway, so that's what we're going to mess with. And so when we get ready to put it together, when we get ready to put it together, you'll work along with me. I'm putting a video out I'm not happy with, for say, but I'm going to put it out anyway, about another Kenwood I was working on. It was the lower end, and I was having some trouble. And I kind of was explaining biasing, and after looking at the video and processing it, I'm thinking, I didn't do a very good job explaining that. It's going to confuse a lot of people. So when I get ready to bias this amplifier here, biasing it, they say, is two things you've got to do to it. First of all, you've got to adjust the voltages. And if you look here, and I'm not going to get, when we get ready to do it, they'll say center adjust, center adjust. These center adjusts make sure that the voltage going out to the speaker is at 0 volts. I was having a fit on the other one, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do that video, but I decided to do it, process this. I'm going to send it up anyway. That's kind of a rant on cheaper compared to expensive amplifiers. And to be honest with you, this one's not any more expensive probably. It probably was in the 70s when it was built. But I ain't saying it's big, it wasn't the high-end models, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. That's neither here nor there. But told you to spend some money on a higher end, and I will eventually. I've got one I've always wanted when I was younger, and that was the KR-9600 or the KR-8060. I really love that KR-8060 that I've seen one time. But this is going to be my amplifier for a while until I decide to bite the bullet and get that. But anyway, to make a long story short, that's not really short. We're going to fix this amplifier. But anyway, we'll go back to biasing. So there's two things. You want to center the 0 voltage to the speakers. You got to make sure it's at 0. You don't really want any, but you can have, after doing that video, you can have up to 15 millivolts, negative or positive, going through the speaker. I don't like that. You like to keep it as 0 as possible. This amplifier doesn't have a biasing for the amplifiers because they're building that Darlington pack. They got rid of that in this model. But the other part of biasing is you want to run the now this is funny, the milliamps to the amplifiers. And the Kenwood, I didn't explain it very well, but the amplifiers were sitting on the side. And you want the milliamps to be, I can't remember what they called that, but there's a name for it. There's a conversion for it. Every service manual has the actual millivolts, but in the actual service manual not for this one, because this one doesn't have it. Doesn't have a adjustment for that, but the milliamps gets converted to millivolts, so you can test it at the voltmeter, and there's a math to do that. But anyway, you want so much milliamps/volts going to the amplifier so they stay on, so they just stay on slightly. Because what happens is if you don't have a little bit of voltage there, from what I understand, you get be a crack or a pop when you turn the volume up, or when you turn it on. Well, basically, I guess when you turn the volume, when you do stuff like that, because it would just crack, pop, or maybe do some other stuff. I have found that actually on another amplifier I'm going to be redoing. I bought to put in the cabinet, but I don't like it after getting it, only because I don't like the way it has to be tuned. But anyway, when I first got that, and usually these old amplifiers, they need to be rebiased. This one here, I can only do the center channel, which means bringing 0 voltage out to the speaker. I can't. These amplifiers don't have any adjustments. You notice there's no other pots in there other than these two. This is for the tuner section. Not messing with that. But this, that amplifier has 2 adjustments. Anyway, make a long story. Anyway, I don't want to make this video any longer than I have to. It's already at 24 minutes. But so that amplifier has to be biased as well. But anyway, I got it, and when we turned the power on here, it made a dong through one of the speakers. Well, after checking the millivolts, which I had to convert, which actually I had the actual service manual, so it actually already converted it for me. But I actually have a pamphlet that covers all the Kenwood stereos, that the milliamps, and then it gives you the math to convert it. Anyway, the left side was at 300 milliamps on the amplifier, or no, sorry about that. Yeah, on the amplifier. right out, and it wasn't anywhere near where it needed to be. So I had to adjust it down, and also it was like 200 millivolts onto the speaker on that side. So that's very important. That you work on that and you get that, you know, close to the factory specs as possible. Don't have to be exact. I mean, it's not like on the Kenwood 720 with the video put out. I'm not going to kind of blow too much. That don't make a difference. But I did not like the way I couldn't keep that zero voltages at zero. Finally, I just replaced the pots. I've got a high-end pots, which 22 k ohms was a hard one to find. It's another thing too. Some of these pots are hard to find. Some of them aren't. But anyway, I got it. Got it finally adjusted after all that time with new pots. I did what I told you I wasn't going to do in the video, but just use it. But I just didn't like it. Didn't want to, because what happens is if you don't have that speaker zero out, you know, you'll get a distortion when you turn it on. One volume will go higher than the other, or it will just be off. And then if you don't have the millivolts right when you turn the volume on or turn the power on, it's going to go dong, or make a, when you turn the volume on, it's going to make some weird noises. So, you know, that is important that you do that. We'll get into that a little bit. I'm not on this one because, like I said, this amplifier you can only center zero voltage out to the speakers. You can't. There's no way of biasing the amplifier. The amplifiers must, obviously, the way they're set up must be set. So anyway, this is a short video on what I'm working on, and when I get all the parts in, which will be at this point maybe a week or two, we're going to put it together, see if I fixed it or if I got everything out. Like I said, there's been a lot of problems with this amp. A lot of stuff. Just crazy stuff, you know. The beauty side of it, though, the FM tuner worked, because when you would dial in, the meter would move, and you know, after you get the transfer quit hissing because they finally the switch set in, you know, the tuner worked. The relays didn't click in. Of course, we had a shorted amplifier, so two of them really, or one of them was shorted, one was open. So anyway, hopefully we get the originals. I'm going to put the originals, hopefully get them put in. But on the same token, if the other amps I had ordered with the different numbers, not the 4325 on the top, if they read pretty good as far as the internal diodes, I may just use those. Just use those, put them in here, and then I always have the original equipment, and I'll put that away for a rainy day, you know. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.